Welcome back to the Movie Review Teacher. We are here tonight reviewing one of my most anticipated movies of Q1 of 2026, Send Help. Now, going into this movie, I really knew from the trailer that it was interesting, it looked intriguing, and I have to say, leaving the theater tonight, it definitely is worth a watch. Now, starring Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams, we have a tale of a boss and a worker that get stranded after a plane crash, and it really becomes a fight for survival. And what I really like about that is you don't necessarily know what's going to happen because they're leading you on so many different directions and adventures that you really wonder what is actually going to happen in this situation. Now, looking at the movie, you have Rachel McAdams playing a woman named Linda, who you could tell right away is different. She has different interests, her personality, her dress style, and I think Rachel McAdams really knocks this role out of the park because as the movie plays on, you see that transition of her character into that survivalist that you see in the trailer. But you really don't know why she is the way she is, but I will give this movie a lot of credit. It details it to a T. You are able to sit down, understand why she is the way she is, but more importantly, you also get a chance to see why her skills have to be used as the movie goes on. You have Dylan O'Brien playing a role of a man named Bradley, who is now taking over a company after his father's death, and obviously those two do not get along. One is very rich and high maintenance, one is different, and that is where the clash begins. Now, when this movie begins, you really are getting this comedic feel. Now, it is billed as a horror movie / comedy, but in the beginning stages of this movie, you are focusing more on that comedic aspect, and I think that allows the movie to build and for you to understand what is actually taking place as the film gets later into the entire story. Now, once the plane crash happens, this is where you begin to feel that horror movie vibe, but not even really that feeling of this is going to be scary, but more of the survival instincts kick in. And this is where you see a big shift in the character dynamic. Because in one hand, you realize who's actually in power in the situation, and that allows the story to unfold because it is different than the office dynamic. So what you have seen in the previous aspects of the movie are really reinforced in a different way as the film is playing out. And I think that allows this movie to flow. Now, when you look at Rachel McAdams again, you see her in this transition, as I mentioned, but I think what you really have in this movie is a tale of her trying to prove things, not just to herself, but others. She wants people to realize that even though she's a little bit different, she still has the ability to do things that other people cannot do. And that is what you get. Now, the question is, how are they going to survive? They're stranded on this island, the plane crash happens, and this is where you see this shift in how they are going to adapt to the changes. Because one is able to handle herself, which is Linda, and the other one, Bradley, is struggling on this island. And you could tell just by this rich upbringing that the story is telling you that that is how they want this story to unfold. Now let's get to where I think this movie struggles. The big thing for me is there is a situation after the plane crash where you're watching it on the screen and you start to realize that things are not playing out in a chronological order. You start to have this feeling of a time lapse and you start to wonder how long are they actually on this island? Because the way the time lapse is working, you almost feel lost in a sense. And so for me, it kind of makes you wonder, okay, what is actually going to happen next? And so some of the timing of this movie is off a little bit. Some of the cutaway scenes do leave you hanging high and dry on what you think is going to happen there. So that is kind of that whole situation. There is another situation in about 45 minutes to an hour into the movie where Linda is in this position of trying to provide for them as they are navigating the struggles on the island. And I think the one issue that I had was the way that the CGI and the graphics were used in that situation. It almost didn't fit. It felt overkill. It felt as if you really didn't need the situation to play out that way because you already knew what was going to happen, but it just, in a sense, was not necessarily believable. I think the ending of that scene is a little bit more believable, but the whole build up to get to that certain scene, and again, I'm not going to say what the scene is. I am not going to give spoilers away from that aspect, but I think that kind of just dampers a little bit of the story that is going on for that specific aspect of the movie. Now, getting into rating, I have to say, like I said, this is one of the first movies in quarter one of 26 that I've actually anticipated, because I feel like this movie was billed to be an exciting thriller movie, and a lot of the times that is there. There is a lot of thrilling aspects to this movie. There's a lot of dynamic relationships with the characters, but also the characters evolving. And I think that allows the movie to flow well. But I also think when you're looking for something where a character is expanding in the role that they are in, you have that in this one. So for me, Send Help is a 4 out of 5. I think this movie is intriguing. I think it's fun. I think it's engaging. I just think there are some aspects of the movie where you wish the timing was a little bit better. You wish it wasn't so predictable. And even with its predictability at times, you wish it would have just had an easier flow in about the middle of the movie. I think the beginning and the ending is done well, but I think in that middle aspect of the movie, there are certain scenes and situations that just did not flow the way that they needed to. So for me, when it comes to Send Help, I am giving it a 4 out of 5. It will be one of the better movies of the month of January. So thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure to follow me on all the social media pages. Go check out the other reviews I have posted. Stay tuned for more. The best of January movies releases on Sunday. Stay tuned for that. Hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you all later.